My brother ridiculed me and treated like dirt. Now he is in prison and all his wealth belongs to me. A smile will never appear on his face again. I'm Alex, the one who never quite fit in the family mold. Growing up, I always felt like an outsider in a house where my older brother Ben was destined to follow the family business path. I still remember those early years when I always felt like a misfit in my own family. While my brother Ben was groomed to inherit the family business, destined to carry on the legacy, my heart pulled me in a completely different direction. From the smallest family gatherings to long, quiet evenings at home, I could sense an invisible line dividing us. Ben's life was one of confidence and clear purpose. He fit into the predetermined role with a natural ease that left me feeling increasingly alienated. I wasn't interested in following the same script. Instead, I craved a path defined by my own choices, a path filled with unknown possibilities rather than familiar expectations. That sense of estrangement grew with every comparison, every unspoken judgment during conversations. Despite the love that bound us, I realized early on that my vision of success and fulfillment was starkly different. The constant tension between conformity and authenticity marked the start of my lifelong journey toward carving out my own identity. One crisp Friday evening, I decided it was time to pull our scattered family together in a setting that broke away from the usual sterile gatherings. I booked a modern cafe in the heart of downtown Atlanta, a place that radiated both style and warmth, a stark contrast to the rigid formality of our past reunions. As I welcomed relatives one by one, I could feel an undercurrent of tension beneath the smiles and polite greetings. Everyone was curious yet cautious, knowing that this dinner wasn't just about sharing a meal, but also about confronting old divisions. When Ben arrived, his confident stride and arrogant smile were unmistakable. He quickly commandeered the conversation, boasting about his latest business triumphs as if proving his superiority was the only thing that mattered. I watched silently, feeling the familiar sting of being out of sync with the family's expectations. Even as I tried to keep the atmosphere light, the evening was charged with unspoken rivalries and a yearning for something more genuine. Every word exchanged and every glance held the weight of unresolved pasts, setting the stage for the conflicts yet to come. During that tense dinner, something unexpected caught my eye. At the entrance of the cafe, I noticed an elderly man, Walter, sitting alone on a bench, his worn-out bag by his side, containing a few meager belongings. His presence was a quiet reminder of life's often overlooked souls. In that moment, while our family was busy entangled in past grievances and unspoken judgments, I felt an urgent need to act. I signaled to our waiter, asking him to add the cafe's hot soup of the day and a freshly made sandwich to our order for Walter. This wasn't a grand gesture. It was a simple act of compassion, a silent protest against the coldness that had crept into our lives. As the waiter wrapped the food neatly, I couldn't help but feel a surge of resolve. Amid the clamor of self-importance and rivalry, I believed that genuine humanity could still prevail. This small kindness was my way of reaffirming that warmth and care mattered more than inherited status or bitter resentments. Almost immediately after I had arranged the extra meal for Walter, Ben's reaction cut through the gathering like a sharp rebuke. His laughter, laced with sarcasm, echoed around the table as he ridiculed my act of kindness. In front of everyone, he scoffed at what he called my naive charity, dismissing it as nothing more than a desperate attempt to steal a moment of moral superiority. His derisive tone wasn't just an attack on my gesture. It reopened old wounds I had long tried to bury. His words stung, dredging up memories of every time I had felt out of place, every instance where my choices were belittled. Despite the hurt, I couldn't let his mockery undermine the truth I had embraced. I saw in his smug expression not just arrogance, but a desperate need to maintain control over a legacy built on deceit. Even as his laughter reverberated off the walls, I stood silently, my resolve hardening. I knew then that the cracks in our family's facade ran deeper than just a difference in values. They hinted at a hidden truth that was about to surface, no matter how painful it might be. That same evening, after the dinner had settled into a tense silence, my phone rang unexpectedly. It was Michael, my longtime friend and the former company accountant, a man whose insights I had always trusted. His voice carried an urgent tremor as he detailed the first signs of financial irregularities in the company. Michael hinted that Ben had been orchestrating dubious schemes for personal gain, manipulating figures and cooking the books in ways that defied even his own reputation for reliability. As he spoke, I could feel the gravity of his words settle in. This wasn't just idle gossip or a minor miscalculation. It was the unmistakable sound of a ticking time bomb hidden in the company's ledger. Michael's warning stirred up a mix of anxiety and determination in me. It was clear that behind Ben's charismatic facade lurked a web of deceit. That call was the catalyst, igniting a relentless pursuit of the truth, a journey that would force me to confront not only a corrupt business empire, but also the painful fractures within my own family. After Michael's urgent call, I found myself unable to sleep, tormented by the thought of betrayal lurking within our family's empire. That night, I began my secret investigation with nothing more than determination and a growing list of suspicions. I pored over old bank statements, dissected obscure emails, and scrutinized contracts that Ben had long dismissed as mere formalities. In the solitude of my study, lit only by the harsh glow of a desk lamp, I uncovered inconsistencies that painted a darker picture than I had ever imagined. Each document led to another, a series of shell companies and fictitious contracts that revealed a meticulously crafted web of deceit. The deeper I delved, the more my heart pounded with a mix of dread and resolve. It became painfully clear. Ben wasn't simply chasing wealth, he was orchestrating an elaborate scheme to hide his true agenda. Every piece of evidence I collected tightened the knot of betrayal and solidified my determination to expose the truth, no matter the personal cost. With each new document exposing another layer of Ben's deceit, I knew it was time to build a case that could not be ignored. I meticulously organized all the evidence I had gathered into 3 separate dossiers. The first folder was for the company's board of directors, a detailed collection of financial irregularities, falsified contracts, and a clear timeline that left no room for doubt. The second dossier was destined for the authorities, a compilation of irrefutable records and confidential communications that outlined the full extent of the fraudulent schemes. Finally, I prepared a personal folder for my mother, Catherine, hoping that revealing the hidden truths to her would finally shatter the illusions she had clung to for so long. Every document, every email, and every bank statement was carefully cataloged and cross-referenced. I worked late into the night, driven by the determination to expose the lies and bring justice. The process was painstaking, yet every piece of evidence I secured felt like reclaiming a part of my own identity, a stand against a system built on betrayal and greed. The morning after my painstaking investigation, our family gathered in a recently renovated mansion on the outskirts of Chicago. The air was thick with anticipation and unresolved tension as I presented the meticulously compiled evidence. The room fell into a heavy silence when I laid out the documents before the board of directors, the authorities, and even my own mother, Catherine. Ben's confident facade began to crumble as the irrefutable proof of his illicit schemes stared back at him. His attempts to dismiss my findings were met with stern looks and murmurs of shock from everyone present. In that moment, it wasn't just a family meeting, it was a reckoning. The board swiftly moved to suspend Ben from his leadership role, and law enforcement began their formal investigation. The revelation of his deceit shattered years of carefully constructed lies, and with every passing second, the atmosphere shifted from tension to relief and cautious hope. Justice was no longer a distant ideal. It had arrived, heralding a new era, where honesty and fairness would redefine our family's future. In the aftermath of the explosive family meeting, the board of directors acted decisively. Ben was immediately removed from his leadership role, and law enforcement stepped in to investigate every thread of the fraudulent web he'd spun. It wasn't just a punitive measure. It marked the beginning of a profound transformation within the company. In a matter of days, old protocols were scrapped, and a new system founded on transparency and equal responsibility took shape. Employees who had long suffered under an autocratic regime suddenly found themselves at the heart of decision-making. Regular meetings became arenas for honest dialogue and collective problem-solving, replacing the old, rigid hierarchy with a more democratic structure. I watched as colleagues who had felt powerless for so long started to speak up and contribute ideas. The palpable shift in atmosphere was a testament to the impact of truth and justice. It was as though the company was reborn, a living, breathing organization that now prioritized integrity over legacy and fairness over favoritism. In the quiet days after the storm, I found myself reflecting on everything that had transpired. The family, once fractured by ambition and deceit, was slowly learning to embrace a new era of honesty. I began to understand that our shared past, with all its pain and betrayal, was also the soil from which our future could grow. Sitting alone in my modest office, I reviewed the final reports, feeling both relief and a bittersweet nostalgia for the innocence of earlier days. I had risked everything, relationships, trust, even my own sense of belonging, to restore integrity not only within the company, but in our family. The lessons were profound. Courage, truth, and the willingness to confront hard realities can reshape destinies. With Ben facing the consequences of his actions and the board paving a fair path forward, I saw hope where there once was only darkness. In that moment, I realized that the true legacy we leave behind isn't defined by wealth or power, but by the courage to stand up for what's right, even when it costs us dearly.